righty. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this regular meeting of the Public Utilities Commission. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's a special meeting.
Oh, this is, all right, let me correct the record. This is a special meeting. You are right. Thank you for that, Tom. Public input. And I think we have our usual reports here. Correspondence, anything late that wasn't in the packet? All right, first order of business then is approval of the minutes from the meeting of November 5th, 2018.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes of.
Second.
All right. Any corrections? Comments?
Mr. Chairman, I had one correction.
Yes.
On page 2, below the table, the third paragraph calls that amount 609, 210.
Yep.
Should be 690, 210.
Oh.
It was correct in the table. It just got, the two numbers got transposed on
Okay.
that paragraph.
All right. Anything else? All right, so I'll entertain a motion, then I'll just restate it as corrected to approve. Second?
Second.
Paul? Second. Okay, double second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That carries. Pete abstains. Thank you. Financials, Bob?
Okay, I handed out the packet before the meeting. Starting with the water department, there's revenues, total revenues of $733,149. Expenses, including capital items, of $852. So we have a net deficit of $119,202. But if we take the capital expenditures out, and the two big items in there are True Blue for $172,000 and Right Pierce for $148,000. That 322 brings a surplus to the water department of about $203,142. Then you got the details of the water, and then if you go to page 6 for the sewer department, there's revenues of $1,251,723, expenses of $781, which include the payment of debt service for Stony Hill sewers and also the capital improvements. The big item in there is Weston and Sampson for $120,387. So the net revenue surplus before the adjustment for the sewer payment and also for the sewer revenue and also including the capital improvement is $469,000. But if you take out the sewer revenue and the debt payment, it comes down to $288. And what's happening is we're collecting more money now than we were in the past on the sewer department, because we started paying out the debt earlier on, and now we're collecting the money for the ones that came on in phase 2 and 3. But then if you take the capital improvements out of $132,000, the sewer department showing a surplus of $420,588.
Question, well, for water first. The True Blue and Right Pierce, are either of those expenses going back into loans or grants?
The True Blue, part of it, I think because that's the water mains.
Yeah.
That would be part of the loan.
Okay.
But we would still take it out of the expenses and capitalize
Yeah.
the work that they did.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Right Pierce, if any of that may be just project work, no?
Well, I noticed that revenue comparisons for the prior years, like, were almost $80,000 lower for revenue on water. Tom, do you have any feel for that? Is that water conservation? What's going on there?
It was a wet year. I didn't look at last summer's numbers compared to this past summer's numbers, but a wetter year, you'll typically have lower demand.
So
That could be
less lawn water?
correct.
Okay. All right.
We still have an increase coming January 1, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that.
And Tom and I are going to be meeting with, what's his first name, Mike?
Dave Fox.
Dave Fox.
For a recalculation of the rates. We're gonna look them over, we're gonna give him some expenditures going out for the next 5 years again and see what his recommendation. It's not gonna happen overnight, it's gonna take a
Right.
while to come up.
Because I'm concerned a little bit about, as we're going along and improving the system.
Yeah, we'll plug in the last couple of years' worth of actual numbers
Right.
compared to what he had put in as estimates.
Right.
So we'll compare where we are to where
Right.
we thought we were.
Right. So if we have to make adjustments, we should. How long will that take you? I want to say it's.
Well, we're gonna meet with him Wednesday, and
I think in the past, it's taken like 6 months or so, maybe longer. It hasn't, it wouldn't be a,
It didn't need to. I think 2 or 3 months is what the turnaround time was. It took us, we studied it for a while, and so we didn't take action on it for 6 months. But I think he came back fairly quick.
and he has the model built now. Now it's a
Yeah.
matter of just, I think, changing some numbers.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be less time than that.
Yeah.
A couple of months sounds more
Yeah,
realistic.
so by November, we should have something. Where am I? I'm sorry.
November.
November
Which
next
don't-
year? Yeah,
sorry.
we'll be fine.
No, I mean by February.
Oh,
I would guess, yeah.
Yeah, because just
I mean,
anticipate.
November's shot now, December, January, yeah, I would think February is a safe bet. And we'll ask him that when we meet with him.
Okay.
The other part of that is, just to get ahead a little bit of my piece, we're gonna try to look at the same thing now for sewer. And at least
Yeah.
start that process. That might be a longer 4 to 6 month, building that
probably,
model.
yeah. But that's less urgent.
Matt, are you gonna be able to make that meeting, or is it just coming up?
I'll have to get back to you, because I do have 2 conflicts that I'm trying to,
Juggle.
yeah.
What day is it?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday at 10 o'clock.
If I can't go, can you?
Maybe.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Let's see.
But I'm concerned because, I mean, I know we have a lot of capital projects, and if they're being capitalized and pushed into the debt area, that's gonna come down, but it seems to me like it still looks pretty tight.
Will the state money show up in the revenue part?
Yeah, when we get that in next month.
Well,
Is
this is
revenue?
as of October 31. We just received that check from
In November.
From
Yeah,
PH.
so you're gonna see a check for,
So the Briarcliff project now, we just received a large chunk of money from the state,
Oh, okay,
which 25% of that is a grant.
okay.
So,
But that's
doesn't
not
show up here yet.
Okay, all right, okay.
so
good.
that's another item that's gonna be on the plus side for us.
Okay.
I don't think we spent anywhere near the amount of money that we were projecting from day one.
well, I don't think so. I mean, in fact, when Tom looked at it, we were under in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so we should be fine on that.
Yeah.
But it'd be great to see the actual numbers.
Yep.
On the sewer side, maybe I'm making this assumption, but it looks pretty good as we're going forward, doesn't it?
Yes, it has been all along, well, over the last few years, 3 or 4 years. So, I mean, maybe the need for increasing rates there is not as great as it is in the water.
I understand, that's
Yeah.
what I was driving
Yeah.
towards.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
but
gonna
you gotta plug the new plant in or repairs
Yeah.
at Danbury into that now
Yeah.
too, so.
And that could be a big number.
We have payments to Danbury, and then with the I&I study, we're gonna have our own set of now construction projects, which we can then, with the use of the model, decide how quickly do we wanna pay, do those projects?
Implement, right.
Or how slowly do we wanna implement them?
Mhm. Okay.
Well, we're still good in the black here.
All right. Okay, I actually took this out of order. Invoices was first, but we started with Bob. So any other questions for Bob before we go to invoices? All right, current invoices, to open up discussion, I'll put a motion on the floor to approve invoices dated, actually, this is dated November 19th. but-
Yeah, I didn't get to change it this morning.
Okay, yeah, that's all right. Because that would have been the regular meeting, right? Okay. So the amount of $109,062.56. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, so take a look at those. So all 5 of these are water related. Any questions? I know you guys are ready to vote. Yes,
I have one comment.
okay, go ahead.
I just found out today, one of the subcontractors for True Blue indicated they have not yet been paid. So related to True Blue, I'd either recommend we make payment contingent upon proof of payment to the subcontractor.
Okay,
In other words, we can approve it, I would just hold off until I know that the sub has been paid, and then we can cut the check.
Can you tell us? the-
Marty? Did you hear that?
$37,256.
Is that within our purview?
Well, the problem that you have is you could end up with liens on the property. I said the problem that you have, you can end up with liens on the property. Subs. I think maybe what should be done first is to ask why they haven't been paid. You know, get the answer first what the problem is.
Okay, ask why they have not been
Yeah,
paid.
why they didn't pay it. Maybe there's a legitimate argument.
We can inquire first, so if you want to deduct this amount from this approval, and then it could go on after we find out, it could go on the next meeting, if that's what you're suggesting.
I'm not really suggesting
Okay.
that. I'm just saying, you know, I think you should ask.
Yes, oh, we will,
And
we
how
will.
much is left? How much is left to be paid?
With this payment, the retainage is going to be reduced down to about 16,000. But there's paving yet to do, which when he does that, there's about 42,000 worth of work left,
And how much is due this subcontract?
37,000. Yeah, they emailed me today letting me know that they haven't been paid, which I had known about another supplier, and we were chasing after the contractor to make sure they were paid in advance of this, and this just came to light today, so.
Well, the balance to finish excluding retainage is 42,000 and then
Correct.
his retainage is 15,000.
Correct.
So he's got 57,000.
You don't know the reasons.
Right, but I mean, if he walks away from that,
Yeah.
that's what we're really
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm insensitive to the needs of the subcontractor, but is this our fight to have with True Blue, or is that between them? I mean, like to Marty's point, was their work substandard or something?
They were the electrical subcontractor, and you know the pump station operation was pretty dependent on their ability to get that installed properly. So we've not had any problems with the electrical or the controls. I just bring the point up so that we're aware of it at this point.
Do we have payment bonds on this?
Two payment bonds.
You got payment bonds, you could always call them. That's not fun. I would say just go ahead and if the work that they've done so far is good, pay them, but at the same time, you make the inquiry as to why there's a problem.
Okay.
You can come back and tell them.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor to approve 109-062.56. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries. Director's report, Tom?
Okay, first item, we're going to be talking a little bit about the I&I study for sub-areas 9, 12, and 15. I'd like to formalize our Clean Water Fund application to the state, and with that, I need PUC to make a motion to request the Board of Selectmen to authorize that application. So I kind of wrote out what a motion should say, similar to what was done in the past for the previous project.
All right. Yeah, so this is just an approval to apply for the grant.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I will put a motion on the floor then that the PUC recommends to the Board of Selectmen that it authorize an application to the Clean Water Fund through the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection and for a grant in the amount of $143,802.15. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so this will go before the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday, and it's just to authorize the application. So, any questions?
Just, what is that particular grant for?
That's the grant portion of the I&I study for the 3 sub-areas that Bob is going to give us a
Okay.
presentation on. Total amount of that was 261 plus, so that 143 is the grant amount, and then we're out of pocket though 117 for it.
Okay.
So this is for the work that's already been done?
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That carries. What else you got?
Okay, related to sewer work, we've got the next step after we hear Bob's presentation would be the design and the construction portion of the 3 sub-areas that we've just studied. So we'll hear that presentation, and I will probably request a proposal from Weston and Sampson for us to consider proceeding with the design and construction end of it. The other part of some of the sewer work is the next sub-area to be studied, which is our sub-area 14. It makes sense to do these I&I studies in the spring. So it would make sense to start to get on board with getting that project in the works as well, as far as the next I&I study. And then following the design and construction for this 3 sub-area section, we would look to go towards the construction. The next item, we had our generator, which is 40 years old, up at the Eureka Water Treatment Plant, failed on us about a month ago. We've got a rental unit running right now, and we just got back a couple of quotes on replacements. The existing unit is an indoor unit, and I have a quote to replace it in kind with another indoor unit, and that's going to be on the order of $28,600. And the quote I got for an outdoor unit was $37,600. So at this point, I would recommend we investigate the possibility of a DWSRF fund for replacing the generator. And I would also then inquire and get another couple of quotes on a replacement unit. So more to come, but I just wanted to get everybody up to speed on where we are.
Other than age, what's the failure mechanism?
You know, when they showed up that night of the failure, did they?
Basically said they can't get parts for the unit anymore. We've been limping along, trying to get things straightened out on it now. So they came in and they said, just trying to find the parts for it. This is from Cannondale. They said the unit's just shot. It's not making enough juice to supply the plant.
How old is it?
It's the original unit,
Yeah.
late 70s, about 42 years old.
money's worth
You have any preference if it goes back inside or not?
I don't have a preference. I think it's just because it's more money going outside. If we can get it back into that one room, you've already got the day tank, you've already got the fuel in there, the transfer switch is right in there.
So you don't have to do a lot of rewiring and
Right,
stuff?
right.
Maybe less permitting too, if you don't have to go outside versus keeping it inside the building.
Does that run off the regular diesel fuel
It does.
for the
Yeah,
boiler?
it works off the tank.
So, all right, so that's,
Is there a particular generator you're in preferences? I know you were thinking about standardizing.
I think we've pretty much gone with Cummings with everything, but this was the quote we got from Cummings. Maybe there's something a little better, a little cheaper, a little bit better.
Yeah, I'll at least get another quote from another vendor and see what they're going to recommend.
How's the transfer switch?
The transfer switch, I think, is relatively new.
Is it
2 years
compatible?
old.
Oh,
It's compatible. It's only about 2 years old.
Another question, how many generators do we have in the age of,
Every one of our stations, so what's that, 17 stations have
and how old are
generators.
they?
The oldest ones now are from the 90s, and those are Stony Hill 1 and 2. And also and the 2 in Clark Park.
Do you think it'd be beneficial to look at all of them, the age of them? Instead of nickel and diamond and just do one at a time?
We could put a list together and come up with the
Make more
ages
sense
and
instead of
conditions and
Crisis management, just go through them and see what we need.
start to plan regular replacements.
Right, it makes more sense.
The Maple Wells might be getting up there.
Yeah, well, again, we don't know what the future's gonna bring there,
Well,
so
true.
we might wanna do it then.
True.
But,
I would do it then.
that's probably one that we would wanna put outside, depending on the building and what have you. If that gets replaced, I think that should probably go outside.
Well, when you generate the list, make sure you put operating hours on the list.
Okay.
The last thing that I've been working on is trying to put together a list of the next set of water mains that we want to replace for the coming year. I didn't get a chance to put anything really formal together for everyone to consider. I got a few different alternatives of different sets of streets. And for next meeting, I'll have something that we could go through and decide upon. That was it.
All right, good. New business, item number 1, Weston and Sampson, and I believe Bob is here to give us a report, and we've got some handouts here, correct?
Yep. You should have a colored version, colored print.
Yep.
So, okay, yep, Bob Tedeschi, Weston and Sampson. Back in the spring, we implemented the investigation of sub-areas 9, 12, and 15. Those were the top 3 sub-areas that were listed in our capital improvement plan. We combined them into one investigation project just for economies of scale. So what we did was, in those 3 sub-areas, which are Main Street, Worcester Street, Paul Street, the downtown area, we looked at 60,000 linear feet of gravity sewer. We did a CCT investigation, so we have video now of all of the sewers in these areas. We cleaned all of the pipe too. A lot of them took just light cleaning, some of them had some heavy cleaning, but all the pipes are now clean, and there's a TV, so you got your eyes on every single piece of gravity storage you have in those areas. And then we observed those videos for condition and for infiltration. We also did what's called flow isolation monitoring, where during the night, when there's theoretically little to no wastewater flow, we plug sections of the pipe, the upstream, and measure how much flow is coming out the downstream and equate that to infiltration. So with those 2 processes, and also we did a manhole inspection of over 300 manholes. So we looked at the piping and manholes, and we came up with an infiltration rate that we found, that we observed, of in the pipeline about 82,000 gallons per day, and in the manholes about 18,000 gallons a day. So total infiltration on that first table was about 100,000 gallons per day. Similarly, in infiltration, we didn't find any similarly in inflow, we didn't find any inflow in the pipeline, but we found inflow in the manhole, predominantly through the covers. There's vented covers that have especially when they're in the gutter, water flows into them. So we found the infiltration, found the inflow. The next step is to do a cost-effective analysis to see if it's cost-effective to fix it. If you have a very, very small leak and it costs a lot of money, it's not worth it. If it's a bigger leak and it's an easy fix. So what we do is compare the transportation and treatment costs. That's what T&T is, transportation treatment cost. So that's your cost to collect the wastewater in your piping system, pump it, or by gravity sewer to Danbury, and to and pay those costs, all those costs. So you compare your transportation treatment costs to your cost to fix. So what we found was that second table, there's about $310,000 in construction costs to remove about 40,000 gallons per day, which is half of what we found. That is just a rule of thumb. You take half of what you find can be removed from infiltration. It could be more or less, but that's like an industry standard. But we also found during our pipeline investigation, specifically in the CCTV videotapes, there are repairs that need to be done that are not necessarily cost effective, but there's cracks in the pipes, there's offset joints that need to be addressed from a maintenance standpoint. So whereas they're not cost effective, they're not gonna remove a lot of infiltration that we observe. It should get programmed into your capital program. So those pipelines, and similar with manholes, again, it's mostly inflow. The second page is a detailed cost analysis of the top table is basically what is cost effective, and that's with contingencies and engineering and other supportive type repairs. That's about $430,000. So that table basically says the top line there, CIPP, which is cured in place pipe. There's about 4,100 linear feet of cured in place pipe and some additional work that is cost effective to fix, meaning it's costing you get the bang for the buck there. It's the bottom table is repairs that need to be made. They don't have to be made tomorrow, but they should be in your short term, over the next, no more than say 5 years. Spread that out, and that's about 11,000 feet, and that's about 1.3 million. So on page 3, that just summarizes.
Bob, can I just ask,
Sure.
can you clarify the CIPP again for me?
So yeah, CIP is cured in place pipe. That's where you insert a resin impregnated sock basically into a manhole. There's no dig. You insert it. With pressure, it goes down to the other manhole, and then it's basically turns into you cure it with steam, and it turns into a pipe, almost fiberglass. Yeah, so it becomes a fiberglass pipe, basically, maybe 3/4 of an inch thick on an 8-inch pipe. It's a structural pipe. It doesn't need the pipe around it anymore. It's a new pipe, and then they go down later, right after, and they cut out the laterals, and so they measure everything. It's a common repair.
I just didn't understand what it meant.
Yep.
Is that the stuff that just failed in that town?
In
a
West
couple months
Hartford,
ago?
yeah, in West Hartford, they put in a 21-inch cured in place pipe, and they cured it with ultraviolet light as opposed to steam, and it didn't cure properly, and there was some water going through and eroded some of the resin. So when it did cure, it didn't cure properly, and the sock basically collapsed, and the wastewater had nowhere to go. And that was a 21-inch pipe, and there was like a half a dozen houses that had their basement filled with wastewater gushing out of the ground. So yeah, it's got to be done right. Don't get me wrong, it's got to be done right. And it's typically cured with steam. I'd say 95% of the time it's cured with steam. I'm not sure why it was chosen to use ultraviolet, but I wouldn't let that incident.
No, I was just curious.
But it's the same process. It's a in situ form invented that back in, I want to say, the 70s or something. It's been used a lot in the 80s and 90s.
Is that a similar process you use in the manholes too?
In the manholes, there's a spin-on. There's a lot of different repairs there. They can insert a liner. But that's more of almost like a coating. Mm-hmm. This is actually looks like a sock, an inverted sock that goes into the pipe. So those are our findings. The next couple pages are maps. I don't know if you can see them, but they're red on that map are the places where the pipes were cost effective to repair. And most of the work is on Worcester Street and Sub-Area 9, but there are other segments of pipe that we recommend repair. The orange are the pipe segments that you'd want to do those over time, whatever your budget allows.
For maintenance.
For maintenance purposes, right? And then the last 2 pages, the picture. So a typical, these are taken from the video. These are snapshots of the CCTV. The first picture is basically, you can see it's a leak. There's a gusher coming on the bottom, and it's squirting out the bottom, out the top there. So this segment, which is on Worcester Street, is cost effective to repair. It's something that we observed at the time. The second picture is on Main Street. That's a defect. You have to turn it sideways to look at it with the text up. This is cracked, an offset joint. You can see the earth around it. You don't see infiltration going into this pipe at the time you looked at it. This particular pipe is about 7 feet deep, and groundwater was around 7 feet at the time. So does this one leak? Or does this one not leak all the time? You can't say. But if the groundwater goes above 7 feet, it's going to leak.
Is this the offset portion?
Yeah, so
Along
yep,
here,
you can
it's
see
gonna be all the way down here.
Right, exactly. On the
About
left,
11 o'clock, down to about 7 o'clock.
yep, on the left side, and on the right side you can see cracking. So when we saw things like this,
Yeah.
we would say we don't see a leak. So the cost-effective analysis is not going to say there's payback immediately, but it's not going to get better over time. It's going to get worse over time. And some of these offset joints, if you don't address them, they can then turn into something you can't line anymore. Now you got to dig it up and fix it, which is, an order of magnitude more cost. So it's just like, anything. The more you let it go, the worse it gets. And the same thing on pavement. So we didn't find anything that was catastrophic, ready to fail. So mobilize now and fix this joint, but you have now a good record of these 3 sub areas.
Your initial statements about manholes, that's where we're getting some initial infiltration right now.
There's some infiltration. There's most of it's inflow, which when it's raining like today,
Yeah.
and you have the vent holes, and
That would
they're in
be,
gutter.
that would be the fastest thing to repair.
Those are the easiest. Right. Those are that's the inflow repair. So
Okay.
you could.
That's the road here?
Yeah, that's the very
That's
that's the
like
very that's the very first page. The bottom the bottom table on the manhole. You can see there's 125,000 gallons per day of inflow. So that's inflow when it's raining, and it will cost. The transportation treatment cost gets skewed because it's not you're not paying $5 million, but that's the process. That's what it costs if you have that rate.
How many manholes do you estimate?
There's 325 in these areas, and to repair, there are on page 2 at the bottom. There's 8 on the bottom table and 34 on the top table, so 42 manholes altogether.
Those don't cost too much, do they, Kelly?
What's that?
Manhole covers?
Covers aren't bad, no. A couple $100 a piece.
Does that, when you replace it, let me just ask a sort of a stupid question here. Do you also put a seal around it so?
Yeah, they basically seal themselves.
Do they?
Right.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
thinking about a rubber seal or something like that.
No, unless there's some movement in it, then we'll put some tar around it, but that's about it. It's, and then some of them have, like these half moons in it, they keep the dirt out of it also.
But there's a hole at the bottom of those half moons to let the water go through, because if it froze.
It's like a little valve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you can't have that freezing because it'll pop up. And then,
Are the holes necessary in some areas to relieve the pressure?
I don't know on that, that would be Bob's thing on
So,
that.
so the holes are necessary for ventilation. So if you have concrete pipe and you do not vent, the gases will destroy your concrete pipe. They'll eat it right out, exactly. And there's stories of failures for people going in, fixing what we're talking about, to fix the infiltration and inflow, but cause another problem by now letting the gases out. So you don't want to seal your pipes
So
completely.
that's your transite and your concrete.
Transite concrete, right?
But on the
PVC
the
pipe. Clay pipe.
clay pipe.
I haven't seen a H2S gases attack clay pipe as much as concrete. I'm not the chemist of that, but I've seen it destroy concrete.
Well, there was, at the time the sewer system was put in, there was still some hat factories working in town. That's why a lot of that clay tile was put in, because of the acids and chemicals from the hat factories.
Yeah, it's an inert material, so,
Sure.
it's common everywhere. You know, I don't know,
Okay.
most sewers are clay.
Going down to the swamp with the main intercept line there, was there a lot of problems down through that swamp area along the railroad tracks and the rivers?
Well, in the swamp area, they tried a couple times, they couldn't get the truck there to, and I personally walked it, I know Kelly walked it, we opened up those manholes, but you can't get a camera truck back there. They got a portion of it from the main road by the storage unit.
The tracks.
Yeah, but there's a couple sections we couldn't video. We couldn't come up to the tracks, and we couldn't come down from the.
Like between Worcester and the tracks.
Yeah.
That area there by
Yeah.
the storage unit.
But what we would recommend there is just line that, because, you know.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable you have to line it, because you're never gonna be able to build a road through there, because it's all wetlands and it's a swamp.
Line right through the manhole.
I would, yeah, line right through the manhole and just leave it there, because I know those manholes leaks, because those have vents that come
Yeah,
up.
they have, that's it.
But a lot of them are broken, there's some sitting on the ground, so the hole's still there.
Oh.
So you can go and fix those, but,
I think that's gonna be the concern between south, whether it be South and Beach, same type of thing, where they're gonna be better off, because a couple of them are right in the middle of the brook there. Like behind the, I can't think of the name
Right,
of the
it comes
complex.
down along the river there,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But some of them, there's one right in the middle of the river.
You had a calculation report as to, it was units of dollars per gallons per day. How does that equation come out? I couldn't follow it.
trying to remember.
Did you see the report?
Wasn't it
Bob,
per
by any
inch
chance?
diameter or something to that
Was
effect?
it the gallons per day per inch diameter mile, or?
It was
Or
dollars of cost per gallon per day. I'm
cost,
curious how you came up with that calculation.
dollars of cost. Is it for transportation treatment costs?
I presume that's probably it.
Yeah, so what we did is we took the costs from your budget, what you pay Danbury, and to the operating budget. I don't have the exact numbers in my head, but I
But
think.
you included like everything in the operating budget.
there
Yes, I
Yeah.
gave them like 2 years worth of
Right,
O&M
but
costs.
Those costs don't go away if you fix the leak. You're still gonna pay Kelly his money.
Right, there are some fixed costs. There's some fixed costs, and then there's
Unless
some.
you're gonna work for free if you fix the leaks, Kelly. So that's why I was curious where that number comes from, because it seems like it's inflated.
And
Because there are costs in there that are not gonna go away if you fix the leaks.
That has the entire budget, that was the process. You can, do you have fixed costs that don't go away? Yes.
Well, if I may, just the flow going through Ball Street, it's gonna cut back on some of that,
Well,
because I know our flows are up.
But what I'm driving at is, it makes the comparative cost that you're looking at greater than it's ever gonna be. So, we're gonna try and make decisions based on what we're gonna save, but we're never gonna achieve that dollar value. And again, I don't know how the calculations work. There was all sorts of stuff in there with, amortization of long-term loans at 2.5%. That's why I didn't know if Bob had a chance to look at it and see if he felt that those are numbers that match up with what we currently do as a town.
So we do that calculation to figure out what the transportation treatment cost is, and it came out to be, I wanna say $38
$38 a gallon or something.
$38 per gallon. That can fluctuate. I've seen numbers as low as 20, 38 is not the highest number I've seen. So it's a tool to say what is cost effective. Could you fine tune that and take out, what are your actual fixed costs? Yeah, your staff, that's a fixed cost, right? You take out half the flow, you don't take out half the staff. The operating of the pumps, I mean, you have a fixed cost for the pump station. If you use less electricity.
I guess what I'm suggesting is that the town look at that number closely and either agree or disagree
Yeah.
with it.
Okay. And I believe the segments that we found that were cost effective, they were cost effective by a lot. So even if we tweaked it down a little bit, but I could take another look at it to see.
Well, it's just, again, to me, it's driving to get as close to the reality as you can.
Yeah,
It's probably not gonna make a big difference on what we go for or we don't go for,
right.
but,
That's a good point.
you know, I don't like to mislead people and say, no, I'm gonna save $7 million, and when they say 4, they go, what? You go, well, you know, we couldn't really,
Yeah.
I'd rather tell them it's 4 from the beginning.
Yeah, that's why I said for the manholes, where it says you fix those manholes, the transportation stream cost is really $5 million. That's the process that's
But that's over X amount of time.
over 20 years.
That's a 20-year
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
treatment and transportation cost.
Right.
And Dino, you're absolutely right. There's gonna be fixed costs. We're not gonna reduce our staff now to 1 from 5.
Right.
But it's gonna be what you're paying for Danbury, it's gonna be your electricity costs for pumping it,
There are truly.
it's gonna be your
variable
chemicals if
costs.
you're adding any chemicals, there's gonna be certain things.
But it's not medical, it's not salaries.
Correct. No, you're absolutely
But
right.
all of that gets rolled into the operating budget.
Yeah.
So is it possible to get a little better handle on that?
We could probably fine tune that number to see what that fixed portion is, and take that fixed portion out, and what's the variable portion.
Yeah, if it's however good your data is, if you have good variable data, variable cost data versus fixed cost data, we'll plug that in. I think we have the budget, and that's what is typically done, you take the budget. But if you have, we can modify it to make it more of a variable cost.
So next step is prepare that data and a proposal, I would think, Tom, for moving forward?
Yeah, we can look at that data, and then, like I said, I think with what you see on page 2, you've got the infiltration and inflow rehab numbers, which is on the order of 400,000, 430,000.
Yeah.
And then you got the preventative maintenance piece, which was, you know, fixing some pipes and some manholes that aren't necessarily leading to infiltration, but just good maintenance practices. I think the next step would be to come up with the engineering design, plans and specs. And then from there's the design and all the engineering to do all that work. Now it's a matter of, it's almost like a shopping list. Do you want to spend that money over 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and then we can decide. I think you want to probably spend that 430, you know, from the infiltration, from the top half, do that early on and cut back on that infiltration that's happening. And then the bigger money, that's more of the preventative maintenance, decide, you know, how do we want to implement that part of it. So I think design and engineering for all of it, and then figure out, you know, how to go about spending it in conjunction with the financial model.
And identifying the areas that are prioritized.
Correct. And all of this right here is just for those 3 sub-areas.
You're right.
And obviously, we'll do the next sub-area, and like Bob had presented previously, as we get further along the line and we see less infiltration, some of that may not be cost-effective to spend, you know, hundreds of thousands to try to just save a smaller amount of gallons.
Right. Okay.
So the next step, I'd ask Bob to come back with a proposal on the engineering part of it for design and construction.
Okay.
And also a proposal on the I&I study for the next sub-area. And then we'll take that under consideration.
Okay. Great. Any other questions for Bob?
Just,
I don't know you.
mine's just for my own knowledge. Why do you only estimate 50%?
That's a rule of thumb. That's from, it could be a lot more. because when for inflow, if you have a roof leader tied into your sewer and you disconnect it, that's 100%. So inflow is always 100%. Infiltration, if you fix a certain segment and you stop the leaks there, it may find its way somewhere else. Some of it may find its way up the lateral, for example, or may go upstream. So, so you never really get rid of all of it, and it's just you do a bunch of them, and
So you stick your finger in one dike, hole in the dike, and it just comes out a different hole.
it goes, yeah. So that's why when you look at it, so if this segment here is leaking and this segment here is leaking, you would fix the one in between too, whether or not you saw it leaking or not, because you know, that's the one that's going to leak after you fix the other two, because they're at the same level. So there's that kind of engineering into it. And it's a good question.
Marty?
Just a couple, just for my own clarification, because I have to tell you that I read this 2 or 3 times, and I was totally lost at the time. Why'd you pick sub-areas 9, 12, and 15 first? Is it the worst areas, or what you believe to be the worst areas?
Sure. The first phase of this, 2 years ago, we did, it's called an II study, infiltration inflow. We did a flow-based analysis. We put flow meters all over this.
Right.
And those 3, 9, 12, and 15, had the highest levels of infiltration and inflow.
Okay, that's what I thought. When you've got down here gallons per day, is that based on an estimate over a period of 20 years, like your T&T cost? Is that the actual amount per day, or is that the average based on what your meters showed?
So the gallons per day that you see on page 1, all of those is what we actually witnessed.
Right.
We saw that leak. We estimated those leaks. We saw it. You see that leak there? There's ways to estimate what that is per day. Those are actual physical observations of leaks at that time.
That was all I had.
All right, so next step is to seek a quote proposal. All right. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business number 2, I&I grant resolution. Is that what we just did in your director's report?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
We did
so
do that.
we'll cross that off. Supervisor's report. Kelly? Anything leaking?
Just a couple things. The new maintainer's working out very well. He's hit the ground running. He enjoys it. He's basically trying to clean up stations right now, and also helping diagnose some of the the issues at the different stations. He's got the knowledge that is a good start for us on the sewer side. Come after the first of the year, I'm going to put him up into the treatment side, and so he can learn both sides of it. So he's basically going to be a maintainer of both sides, water and sewer. But he's working out very well. Hydrants still on the list. They're going to get done. Like I say, none of them are in asphalt, which is a good part. They've got to do them through the winter or before the deep frost. That's so be it. It's just getting the guys out there to do it. I've been after them for a couple months. The services on Grandview have been after Pembroke. They're same thing. They're going to get them flipped over, because I know Bobby wants to pave that in the spring. So they're going to get flipped. As for Farnham Hill, these guys are working along real good. They're very clean. They're very neat. No problems with the neighbors, and seems to be working out very well. That's Grassland Construction. That's all I really have.
Okay. Question?
No. Ed Knapp,
Yeah.
when do you project, I know one day he's got to say, I'm going to retire. And this new fellow that you're saying, are you planning to train him as his replacement?
I'd like to see Justin come up into Ed Knapp's spot, Justin Buckhold. He's got his, he's working up toward his 3. He needs a 4 to run the plant. He's getting his certifications now. It's just going to take a little bit of time. And, I mean, I can't hold Ed to it, but Ed has basically said once Justin gets his certifications and gets up there, you know, he may start to consider it.
What's the best timing for him to be able to get his license?
For Justin, did he take his treatment 2 test yet?
He's taking his 2.
Oh, this coming month?
Next week he's taking
Next
his
week.
2.
So,
Yes.
assuming he passes, he'll be a treatment 2,
Right.
and then he'll need two more rungs to get up the ladder.
Yes, do they have like, you know, apprenticeship kind of things? where
Uh,
you earn $2,000?
I think each rung is another year.
It's about a year, yeah.
Yeah.
But he let us,
Yeah.
without taking the course, he's challenging the test. And with that, a year from now, he'll be able to take the 3 and hopefully get to the 4.
So
I
at
would,
best it's 2 years.
I would like
It's
to
been,
caution, we probably shouldn't be speaking about succession plans
Yeah.
in a public meeting and, you know, until,
No, we understand that,
Yeah.
you know, backup is always a concern.
no, you're right, but I wouldn't, I don't want to make it sound like we're
No.
promoting somebody right now, you know, that decision's been made when that's not the case, so.
Correct.
That should be a executive session when the time comes. But in terms of planning, yes, absolutely.
Yes,
And
we
that's,
are in.
That was my
that's,
concern.
and that was, I know, that was your concern, that's
And
good.
Ed just got renewed with his license, I believe,
He did just, I think, 6 months ago, he got it for 3
for a
years.
3-year cycle, so.
Yep. Okay, good. What else? That's it? All right, good, thank you. Old business, capital project status. Marius, welcome.
Thank you. So I just got to my handout. Radcliffe Meadow Booster Station construction. So he's done for this year. Final paving is to be done next year.
Mhm.
Just want to let the trenches settle. Water main replacement design. You know, construction's ongoing, and Fordham Hill is doing a good job so far. So Kelly's been going over there every day, just checking with the contractor. Additional groundwater supplies, Bergstrom Field work. So we're working on the final report for the DPH and Connecticut DEP. The final report right now, I was talking to Greg today, we're going to be submitting in mid-December. We're waiting for some hydraulic modeling information from our sub-consultant on the well, so that's going to be submitted to the state by mid-December. SCADA communication study, we received final comments from the town last week, so we're going to incorporate those and present the final report to Tom. And I'm also in the process of scheduling and presentation for the PUC with our instrumentation engineer, who's going to come in and make a presentation on findings of the report. And the Chestnut Ridge tank, I guess, the town is ongoing negotiations with the property owners. They'll be discussed in the session after this one, so.
Mhm. Okay. Any questions, guys? Nope. All right, thank you very much. Fats, oils, and grease. We're still working on that, right?
Still working on it, no new update at this point.
Okay. In that case,
One comment.
oh, yeah.
Did you want to mention anything about the summit? And
No,
get
no,
that-
not until
get on the
you,
agenda?
not until you go over that, because I know you just got that.
Yep.
Marty, he was asking about the summit, that he hasn't had a chance to evaluate that material.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah. All right, so, Marty, do you have any update on the proposal to acquire property that you want to tell us, or is that?
Only update, it's not going into executive session. The earliest I can meet with anybody is December 14th, which is a Friday, at 4:45.
Okay,
That's the best I can do.
okay,
That's what, and they both agreed,
all right, okay, great. Well, that concludes the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much.